Hey guys. Hi. Trading punches with the enemy. Trapped in my flesh and bone, crying out to you. I'm desperate. Love pulled out of this cage and set me free. All of my fears, like Jericho walls gotta come down, come down. All of my fears, like Jericho walls gotta come down, come down. My prison turns to ruin. Jericho walls gotta come down, come down. Ooh, truth was crashing through the pride and the blame, coming straight to the heart of me. Ooh, long before I ever called your name, you were fighting for my victory. Carved in your flesh and bone, the wounds that have set my soul forgiven. Oh, now I can feel the darkness trembling. All of my fears, like Jericho walls gotta come down, come down. All of my fears, like Jericho walls gotta come down, come down. My prison turns to ruins. All of my fears, like Jericho walls gotta come down, come down. Yes. Yes. K-Love, guys. K-Love. All I wanna see is you. Hey! Jericho walls gotta come down, come down. Gotta come down. My prison turns to ruins. Jericho walls gotta come down, come down. All my fears gotta come down. Gotta come down. Good morning, guys. Or should I say good afternoon? It is 4:47. It is Thursday, September 21st. And that was Andrew Ripp, R-I-P-P as in Peter, Jericho. That was amazing, guys. And it's so appropriate for today's session, right? Because you see, right? Earlier, I was so excited about doing my show about what we're going to work on today is cause and effect, right? So God gave me that word because you guys know we're back on script. We're going by script, right? But God gave me this word. I want to say it came to me actually like late evening yesterday, or it could have been like while I was driving into work this morning. But I got this word, cause and effect, right? And I was so excited, right? And I got to tell you, like my whole day at work, I was excited about doing today's show, talking about cause and effect, right? And don't you know, like right before it was actually time to do the show, right? That fear kicked in, the doubt. I was like, oh my gosh, should I really talk about that stuff? So that song was appropriate, you know, and actually, like, right on my way into work this morning, that song played on the radio, right? Because, you know, the wheels in my head was turning. I'm driving into work. I was thinking about tonight's show, and I know we're going to be back on script where we left off, right? On script, right? Was on those outside factors, right? Talking about mental health awareness, right? The outside factors, the relationships, right? With female friends, both in your personal life and in your work life, right? So we've been on relationships for a while now, right? So even though we're going to talk about cause and effect, right? It's still going to be based around relationships, right? Relationships with, we're not talking about, okay. So when we started on this journey, right? I told you guys there are other relationships besides the ones with the love, the personal romantic relationships, right? The relationships outside of the mate, the boyfriend, the spouse, husband, wife, you know, the romantic relationships. We were talking about those other relationships, right? So even though we're going to do cause and effect, right, it's still going to be related to relationships. I told you guys, we got work to do. It's a lot when you're dealing with a mental health condition, right? But I started to get nervous, guys. You know, that I started thinking, oh my gosh, should I talk about that? You know, oh my gosh, should I use that illustration? So, like I said, that song came on the radio on my way into work, and I was just like, it was my message. Like, it doesn't matter the fear, the doubt, you know, and that's the thing, right? The fear, right? Because certain people in my life, right, they put fear in me, right? And that fear has stopped me from living freely for a long time, right? Because I always had that fear, right? That fear's got to come down, guys, right? We also talked about fear around having discussions about mental health, right? So, again, like, you could see somebody going through some stuff, right? And we're not talking someone you just met. I'm talking somebody you might have known your whole life, that you may have known for the past 10, 15, 20 years. Like, if you have any knowledge of mental health diseases, right? And you know somebody's journey and you know somebody's story, right? But this person has never, ever, like, seen a therapist or counselor, or even considered that there might be a problem there, right? And you might say something to that person, right? And anytime you mention to somebody, right, about mental health awareness, their first thought that comes to mind is, I'm not crazy, right? So a lot of people don't even consider going to get the help because of the fear. They're scared, right? For some reason, right, when you talk about mental health awareness with people, right, like I said, their first response is, I'm not crazy, right? And again, that misinformation, right? Like, having a mental health condition does not mean you're crazy. Like, what is crazy, right? I mean, I can give you some examples of what I believe to be crazy, right? And we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that stuff in our journey of cause and effect, right? So like I said, I started getting nervous and I started doubting myself, and I was just like, you know, I don't know if I can do this, right? But again, right? This is the journey, right? This is the path that God has always had me on. And I would never want to talk about it because I know people's ideas surrounding mental health. Example, like I said, I grew up in a black community, and we're talking like back in the late 60s, 70s, 80s, right? And I grew up in this black community where there's these myths, right? And this misinformation, right? Where people associate psychiatrists and counseling with people who are crazy, right? Tell me why I was the sanest person in my environment, right? The one who goes to counselors, the one who goes to psychiatrists, the one who is aware of her mental health condition, the one who is on a treatment plan and taking mental health meds, right? I'm the sanest one around them. And I'm not just saying that, right? What I mean by that is, right? We're going to get into it, guys. We're going to get into it, okay? Yes, I have my coffee. I just got home from work. I'm sipping coffee. It is Thursday, September 21st. I have a daytime job. I get up at 5 a.m. because I got to punch that clock for 7 a.m., right? And most people can get up like an hour before work, right? And shower and get dressed and be out the door. I can't do that. I don't know how people do that, right? I have to get up at least an hour and a half, right? Before it's time for me to walk out that door, because I like to shower, right? As you can see, I have a lot of hair, guys. You know, and this side always turns out better than this side, right? But sometimes I can get it perfectly, both sides. It's just, you know, I've been wearing my hair out a lot, so it's been a few days since I had to braid it. So it kind of came out a little messy today, but that's all right. I was going to work. I wasn't going anywhere, you know? So yeah, it takes me time, you know, to do my hair. I like to sit and have a cup of coffee. I'm not zoning out these days, guys. Like, there was a time that I'd sit my coffee and be gone, right? So that no longer happens. You know, like I said, I've been on treatment for a long time, and thank God, right? So it's not like I sit here and zone out. I don't know where the time goes. From the time I get up at 5 a.m. till I gotta leave here by like 6:40. It takes me like 20 minutes to get to work in the morning. I have to be there for 7. I don't know where the time goes. And sometimes, right, I try to make it a habit of getting up at 5 a.m. in the morning, right? But sometimes if I'm tired, I probably won't get up till like 5:15, 5:30. It depends, right? But I have to be up by 5:30. And that would be an hour. From 5:30 to 6:30. Like I said, people can get up an hour before they have to leave to go to work. But I just like that extra time. I just like to be able to take that time, you know, and I'm going to tell you this. I shared with you guys about this, right? Things that you can do, right, to manage your mental health beyond medication, right? Because even with being on meds, right, it's not going to get you all the way there. There's some other things you got to do, right? So the purpose of me getting up early in the morning is like I have to prepare myself. Like I already know what I'm going to walk into as far as when I get to work, right? We got multiple people working there. There's multiple personalities bouncing around. You know, I can't get triggered. So yeah, I need that time to prepare myself, get my spirit right, get my mind right. You know, it takes me time. When you have a mental health condition, right? Like I said, not everybody has a mental health condition, and, you know, they can do some things, right? I can do the things too, but there's things that I have to do to prepare myself to do the things, you know? So yeah, I get up at 5 a.m. I'm at work for 7. Most days I leave at 2. One day a week I'm there till 3. And if we have a meeting after work, right, I don't leave work till 5. That's a long day for me. I'm tired. I'm in my 50s. I've been doing this a long time. And I'm not just talking about my mental health, right? I started working when I was 11, right? You know how they have those summer jobs for the kids, right? And I did that up until I turned 14 years old. When I turned 14 years old, you can go to the school department and get your working papers, right? At 14 years old, I was working as a cashier at McDonald's. I worked. I worked, guys. So anyway, let's get to it. How was you guys' day? Everybody had a good day out there? Again, leave me messages, guys. If you have questions about something, if there's information that I have that you need, and I know you don't really, yeah, you can leave a message, right? Because we're all here for the same reason, right? I do have a professional Facebook page, right? Johnny B. Hopkins, author. If it's something that is kind of private, right? You don't want all the other people in the comment section to see what you're talking about. Go to my Facebook page, Johnny B. Hopkins, author, right? You can leave me messages there. I do check those messages as well, okay? Like I said, I'm here for you guys. I'm here. And nothing you can say to me will be embarrassing or, scary. Like I when I tell you I've been there, I've done it all. I've done it all. And I can identify with some of that stuff, right? Because I shared about how for years I didn't want to tell my story. For years, because of the shame, the guilt, like, all this misinformation. Misinformation, misguidance, right? We got to get rid of that stuff, guys. If we're going to get better, right? We got to get rid of that stuff. So we're going to move on to cause and effect, right? And I just want to give you guys real quick, right? I just want to give you guys real quick the meaning of cause, right? I mean, I know what it means, but whatever. So cause, a person or thing that gives rise to an action, phenomenon, or condition. Okay, that's cause. A person or thing that gives rise to an action, phenomenon, or condition. The cause of the accident is not clear. Right? We're going to clear that stuff up, right? So that's cause. And now we're going to go to effect. I'm probably not saying my words right, guys. It's just how I say stuff. Effect. A change which is a result or consequence of an action or other cause. Oh, guys, this is so perfect. Oh my goodness, right? Because this is about mental health awareness and mental health wellness, right? So, for effect, right? They give you the definition of the word effect. A change which is a result or consequence of an action or other cause. And the example that they give you is the lethal effects of hard drugs. The lethal effect of hard drugs. Oh my God, that is so awesome. That's so awesome. You see how my higher power shows up for me to reassure me, right? I like to like read, guys. I don't just stop at one key information. I gotta have all the information. But anyway, that was so awesome. You see that? My higher power is showing up for me. So where I want to go with that? Where we left off yesterday, right? We were talking about the different forms of mental health issues, right? We talked about depression, manic, bipolar, schizophrenia, DID, which is dissociative identity disorder, right? And I gave you guys some information earlier about how drugs can also hide symptoms, right? And we talked about, I gave you an example of how drugs can hide symptoms of a underlying issue, such as a mental health condition, right? And I don't know how much of this information is true, right? But I'm just going to put this out there. And this does not apply to everybody, okay? So as I told you, right, I am a woman in recovery. I have 18 years clean, right? And in recovery, right, we have textbooks. We have textbooks. We have step working guides. Like, we have material that we have to read and you know, answer questions to, right? You guys know I just lost my chain of thought, right? But it's going to come back to me. So, while in recovery, right? You know, I'm in recovery. I'm being like introduced to some new words, you know, a new language, you know, phrases. And during that process, right, there is a phrase. I gotta slow my brain down because it comes so fast I could lose it, right? You guys, I lost it that quick, but it'll come back. I just gotta slow my brain down. I'm sorry. You know, I have no control of this. I have no control of this. Give me 1 second. So I told you guys, like, drugs can hide. Okay, I know where I was going with it. So I have heard, right, in my process, right, going to meetings, reading the material, learning the language, right? And like I said, this, it may not apply to everybody. I'm just telling you guys, like, this is what I heard, right? In recovery, I heard that most people, right, who have a drug problem, right, have mental health conditions. Most people, I'm going to say that again. Most people who abuse drugs have a mental health condition. And I'm going to tell you how it could make sense, right? As you guys know, right? Drugs are very dangerous. You could die. You can die, right? What normal people, right, do you know, right, that think it would be a good idea, right, to try or experiment with a drug that can kill you? I mean, people who know, right, you know that drugs can kill you, right? And it kind of sounds like, you know, I'm not talking about the death part, right? Example, right? There's certain drugs, right, We're going to use heroin as an example. I've never done heroin, guys, okay? But like I said, my mom has, right? And I know other people who have, like family members, friends, people around me, right? Some people, right? Like if somebody goes to buy a certain type of drug, right? And they get that high or that rush, right? Almost to the point of dying, right? And they tell other people, right? Oh, yeah, I brought this drug from over here and this is what it did to me, right? Those people will go looking for it because they want to have that experience. Does that sound normal? Um, like I said, some people know that there's a chance that this drug could kill you, right? And they still want it. I know people, right? The thought of even like messing with drugs, that they're totally against it. They've never experienced it. They don't think it's like normal, right? And that's a perfect example of cause and effect, right? The cause is the drug, right? The effect, right? You could die. Cause and effect. And it goes even deeper than that. We're going to cover that stuff, okay? I'm going to use my sister, for example. Cause and effect, right? And it's still in the guidelines of relationship, right? So my sister, right, after having a traumatic childhood, right? And I really, you guys, this is my book, God's Gift to You, book 1, right? You guys have to read it. You know, this is going to take you way, 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 way back, right? It's going to help you understand some things, right? It's going to give you some knowledge about some stuff. It's going to teach you about the cause and effect, right? There's information in here, guys. Good stuff. When it comes to mental health awareness, right? This is the beginning. So anyway, oh, that book can be purchased at DoranceBookstore.com for those who are interested. My sister, right? I feel as though that even as a young girl, there were signs and symptoms of a mental health condition. But because I was underneath her, right? I seen my sister go through some stuff, right, that I didn't understand. I, being a year underneath her, right, I knew nothing about mental health awareness, mental health diseases. I knew nothing about that stuff. So when my sister, right, was struggling with some things as a young girl, right, I would see stuff, right, and I didn't relate it to mental health. And I've known my sister my whole life. And I had to watch her journey, right? From when she was a little girl to when she became a woman, right? All the way to the day she left this earth, right? I had to watch the many changes and the many transitions as she went further along her journey when it comes to her mental health, right? Like I said, they first gave her the diagnosis of depression. Then they said she was manic depressed. Then it was just manic. And then it was bipolar. So all the way back in her childhood, right, there was some element there that I knew nothing about. So the cause, right, was the mental health situation. You know, the mental health. I gotta slow my brain down. The signs and symptoms of mental health, right? There were signs and symptoms all the way back from when she was a little girl that went undetected. It went unnoticed. Until it became evident. Like I said, I have gone through some stuff with my sister in regards to her mental health, even as a little girl, and I didn't know anything about mental health. And sometimes, like years later, when I think about certain things that went on with my sister that I didn't understand back then, like now as a woman, like this light bulb went off. And I was like, oh my God. Yeah. So when my sister was a little girl, right, and was having some signs and symptoms of a mental health issue, right? And then when you go through childhood trauma, right? So the mental health, the signs and the symptoms were already there that no one noticed or took note of, like, because we didn't have the information back then, right? And then she went through the trauma of her childhood, right? The symptoms grew. They became more evident. I was watching this stuff the whole time and had no idea. I had no idea. So anyway, like I said, as a young girl, there were signs and symptoms of a mental health issue, right? And then on top of that, you add childhood trauma, right? And then as the years go on in life, right, somewhere, somehow, I don't know if she might have been in some trouble and somebody, you know, if she ended up having to use drugs against her will. You guys got to read my book, right? So I don't know if she voluntarily picked up that drug or if she was forced to pick up that drug, right? So now the mental health issues go undetected because the only thing people see now, right, is a young woman on drugs, right? Not knowing this lady has a mental health condition, right? And as I stated with you guys, like when I started learning about my mental health, right, and started having like these symptoms, right, and I just kept brushing it off, right, and then when I found out what it was, like I was embarrassed, I was ashamed. I felt less about myself. Like, society, right? The way they respond, right? To people with a mental health condition, right? Like, that shame didn't just happen. I already had the shame, the guilt, the embarrassing stuff inside, right? But then when society started reacting, right? Watching the way society reacts to people with a mental health condition just confirmed the stuff that I was already feeling inside. So anyway, my sister, right? At some point, it did become crystal clear that she had a mental health issue, and she got her diagnosis, right? But she was still battling with the street drugs, guys. And like I said, for years, I knew my sister's choice of drug, right? She was on this one particular drug for years, right? And as I stated in her last days, again, I don't know what would make her think it was a good idea to start using another form of drug, right? I don't know the story behind it. I know that in her last days, she had met a gentleman, and that gentleman was using heroin. So when the doctors, like, after her passing, told me what they found in her bloodstream, I was just like, no. Like, no, not that. Like, I know my sister's choice of drug. But those last days was tough for her on this earth, right? And again, I told you guys, right? When she passed away at the age of 35, she left 4 babies behind. 4! We're talking about the cause and effect, right? You have a mental health issue. You're using street drugs. Whether she meant to cause harm to herself or not, right? Doesn't matter, because it still happened. Whether she meant to do it or not, it still happened. The 4 babies, right? I told you guys, right? Even though my sister was older than me by 1 year, it was always me, guys. Always me trying to take care of the family business, right? Now, I told you, right? My sister, right? She had her first child when she was like 14, 15 years old, right? By the time my sister passed away, I think he might have been like, oh my God, he had to be like, okay, so her daughter, her first daughter was like 7 or 8. My daughter was like 11, 12. So my sister's first son had to be like 15, 16, if that, right? And as I told you, because she had him at the age of 15 years old, again, battling a mental health issue that went undetected, childhood trauma. When she had the baby, right, she'd run away from home, right? And she wanted to take the baby with her, but mom said no, right? Now, you got to remember, mom also had a mental health condition that went undetected, right? Mom was also battling the disease of addiction, right? She used heroin. She intravenously, she'd shoot needles, right, in her arm, right? Or, my mom had friends, right, that surrounded her that they all used intravenously, right? And I know at some point as a child, right, I would hear stuff, right? And they would tell me, like, I would hear, like, my mother's friends that surrounded us, right? Like, they would shoot heroin anywhere. If their arms were burnt out, they'd shoot it in their neck. They'd shoot it in their toes. I've heard stories of them shooting it in their private parts. That's how bad that disease can get, guys. That heroin ain't no joke, right? But anyway, so yeah, Mom was like going through some stuff, and they ended up taking the baby. He ended up adopted, right? And I told you guys the story, right? When I went back home to Boston, right, and found my family, after I found all my family members and, my siblings, my mom, and I got us all back together, right? I knew I had a nephew out there. My sister's first child. And I needed to find him. I needed to know, is he okay? Is he being cared for properly? Is he in a good foster home? Because I told you guys my story about being in foster homes, right? So, yeah, I had to take some steps, to find my sister's son. And he was back in our lives. And he wasn't back in our lives that long before my sister passed away, right? And when my sister passed away, right, guess who had to be the one to tell him? Like this kid that grew up he was adopted, right? And after all these years, right, he finds his biological mother, right? And they start, rebuilding that relationship, right? And then she dies. And then, right, when he got the information that his biological mother passed on, right, from me, I had to be the one. Like I said, my sister was the oldest, but it was always me, guys. But anyway, when he got the information, right, he ended up sicking in the hospital, right? And the foster mother, or his adoptive mother, right, she had to call me and tell me this. That my nephew, right, when he got the information about his mother's passing, got so sick, he ended up in the hospital, right? And it was the adoptive mother who called me. I had to go up to that hospital and have a conversation with my nephew, like, you got to get up. You got to get up. You can't just lay there. You got to get up. We're talking about the cause and the effect. If you guys think, right, that you could play with a mental health disease, right, or the disease of addiction, I told you, people are dying. The cause, the effects. And like I said, right, these people, right, the cause, the effect, they're gone. They're no longer here to deal with the consequences, right? We're talking about relationships, right? So now the family members got to step in there, right? And it's a difficult process, right? When a woman has 4 children, right? And she passes on, right? And now these children, right, they're hurt. They're confused. There's some stuff they don't understand, right? And the other family members, right? We got to deal with that stuff. We got to pick up them pieces. We got to put stuff back together, right? But because the children are so hurt and so much confused about what, the effects of my sister's life, right, caused harm. Whether it was intentional or not, it caused harm. So now you got 4 children growing up in this world confused, in pain. And they're not really alone, right? But without their mother, they're alone. They're alone. And not to mention, right, the family members, right? How it affected me losing my sister, right? Having to watch my parents bury their first child. Cause and effect. Relationships outside of those romantic ones. We're talking family members. We're talking mother, father, child, sister, aunt, cousin, mother. All these relationships, right, were affected. Remember what I tell you guys, right? Mental health, prescribed medication, right? And street drugs. Don't mix. Don't do it. So that's just one example, right? Of the cause and the effect, right? And then you got all those relationships in there, right? Mother, father, daughter, sister, mother, like her children. Growing up in this world, this is a tough world we live in, guys. Without your mom. And I'm not talking, right, adult people, right? We in our 30s, our 40s, our 50s, our 60s, right? And we lose our parents. We're talking about babies. Babies, right? They got to go on in this journey of life, right? We're going to move on. I'm going to talk about mom. Cause and effect, right? Because of mom's mental health issues, right? That went unnoticed, undetected, untreated. And then you add street drugs, right? It was bad, guys. It was bad, right? Her 4 babies, 2 boys, 2 girls, right? Besides all the stuff, right, that went on in the home, you guys got to read my book. This is evidence, right, that I know what I'm talking about, right? This is the proof. I'm not just talking, right? I'm telling you, I've seen some things, right? I'm giving you plenty of examples, stories, illustrations, generational curses, relationships with mom, with dad, with your siblings, with your children. The cause and effect, right? When we have a mental health condition, right? And you start mixing it with the street drugs, right? Even before you take meds. You don't have to be on mental health medication, right? A lot of people, right? These signs and these symptoms, right, of these mental health conditions, right? You play them off. You downplay them, right? Or maybe you don't remember them, right? But now you're using drugs, right? Are the symptoms because of an underlying issue? Or are the symptoms the side effects of the street drug? Right? So now, because you're using street drugs, right, and you're having certain behaviors and side effects and symptoms of the street drug itself, right? We don't know what else is going on over here. We don't know, right? The cause and the effect, right? I told you guys, I'm going to bring my brother in on this. My brother, right, has spent most of his life in and out of jails, prisons, right? The behaviors, that emotional trauma. When you have a little boy, right, there's supposed to be a certain bond between a mother and her son, right? You guys. And when that little boy, right, is hurting, right? And he grows up to be a man, right? When he starts dating women. And this is why I told you guys a story about my best friend, right? And she was like, why don't I hook her up with someone, right? And I told her, because I love you. Don't get me wrong, I love my brothers too, right? But my friend, right? We're not doing that. We're not doing that. Like, I don't want to be responsible for that. And this is normal stuff, right? You have people, right, that may not have a mental health condition, right? And may not have a history of drug abuse, right? Like, we have people that, quote unquote, normal. And I'm going to use quote unquote because we don't really know how normal they are, right? But anyway, just stay up with me, right? And sometimes, like, when you have a group of people, right, quote unquote, normal people, right? You guys are single, you're out there mingling amongst each other. so and so. I've heard people say that I've met my husband through friends, right? I would do that, right? If I could do it, right? Without feeling guilt if something was to happen, right? Because this is my girlfriend. I love her. I want the best for her, right? And this is not to degrade my brother. I love my brother, guys, but he's been through some stuff, right? He's been through some stuff. Stuff that he's not in touch with, right? He's not in touch with. And it shows, right? I wouldn't put any of my girlfriends with either one of my brothers. I'm sorry. We're not doing that. I'm not going to be responsible for that. Relationships, right? Cause and effect. Cause and effect. And I told you guys, right? Mom was taken from her mother when she was 7 years old. Never to see or hear her mother again, right? My sister's first son that she had at 15 years old was taken from her, right? My mother's children were taken from her. Cause and effect. I also told you guys we was going to address some of the violence, right? You guys, I grew up, like I said, back in the late 60s. I was born in the late 60s, right? So we're talking late 60s, late 70s. Well, late 60s, 70s, and 80s in Boston, Massachusetts, in Roxbury, in Dorchester, right? Boston was segregated back then. Like I said, black people didn't go into white communities and white people didn't come in our communities unless they was like a police officer, a truancy officer, a social worker. And even they didn't come alone. They always had a black person with them. Because of my mom's mental health condition, right? I told you guys, like, there's a balance, right? When we discipline our children, right? Because we don't want to hurt them, right? There's a balance, right? I know people like old school back in my day, right? Used to get beatings or whatever, right? Y'all don't know my mama. That was not normal. I don't care what anybody say. You guys need to read this book, for real, for real. Okay? We're talking about mental health awareness, okay? Like with my daughter, right? Don't get me wrong. If my daughter needed disciplining, right? I discipline her, right? And I may have even beaten her once or twice, right? But my mom, you guys, no. No. There's no way I can justify or rationalize, right? And I'm going to tell you, right, that something that stuck with me with my daughter when I raised my daughter. I told you guys, like, right, when I had my daughter, right, I started having some signs and symptoms of a mental health disturbance, right? And I had to go seek professional help. And I'm going to tell you something that stuck with me, right? So my dad one day said to me, right? My dad, I told you, I listened to my father, guys. He told me, he said, Johnny, he said, don't ever beat her when you're mad. He said, walk away. And if you still feel like you need to beat her, You come back and you do it. He said, do not beat her in the moment when you are angry. I listened to that information. And again, like, you know, I had to do extensive counseling when my daughter was young. You know, some stuff started popping up and, you know, yeah, we're not doing that. We're not doing that. And I'm going to tell you this, right? If I even would have a thought, right, that somebody touched my daughter or did something to my daughter, and I'm not saying I'm all tough and all that, right? But we mothers know, maybe some fathers know, those single parents, when you have that bond with your child, right? My daughter knows. I don't play when it comes to her. There's some stuff, right? It could be minimal stuff, right? That my daughter won't tell me because she knows how I'm going to react. She knows. Don't play with my daughter. What is that thing? Like Mother Bear or something like that? There's this, what's the word I want to use? There's a saying, but it's a different word I want to use, right? Mother Bear, right? And even like some animals in nature, right? Don't play with them animals' babies, right? Imagine us as humans, right? Don't play with my daughter. Anyway, guys, that's enough of that. So anyway, yeah, cause and effect, right? Relationships, man, it's hard. It's hard. I think I told you guys before, like, with my sister's second daughter, right? When she got of age, she had got a Facebook account, right? So I would see her, right, throughout her life, like following her on Facebook and stuff, right? And I've always had contact with my sister's first daughter, right? And my sister's first daughter and my sister's second daughter, the sisters, right? They know each other, right? My first sister's daughter has always reached out to me, like always, like throughout her life, you know? And she has been around family members, you know, the aunts, the cousins, you know? But my sister's second daughter, right? Because she was only like 2-3 years old when my sister passed on, right? And for me, there was fear, there was guilt, you know, up in my head, wondering how she might feel about us, you know, my sister's family members, because they were adopted when they were young, and they don't know the whole story. They don't know. And people, right, we let our imaginations run wild, right? We can make ourselves believe some stuff, right? So I wasn't sure how those kids felt. So I couldn't just go in, right? I had to like fall back and wait for them to come to me, right? With the questions, right? That's deep, guys. The cause, the effect, the relationships. And right, people, right, who don't have no elements of a mental health condition, or, you know, have never really got into street drug use, right? And the relationships that they have with each other, right, are healthy, right? When I tell you, right, me and my siblings, right, we knew we loved each other, right? But we fought. And I know most siblings fight, right? I'm talking fight, right? Because we grew up in that violence. We didn't know any better. And when you grow up, right, as little kids in an environment, right, when you got all these young adults and they're dealing drugs, they're selling drugs, there may be some mental health elements involved, right? And you grow up in this, right? It's like that all around you, right? You grew up thinking that stuff is normal. It is not. It's not normal. I'm going to give you guys an example. I'm laughing because I'm telling you guys, I have like this twisted sense of humor, right? But there's nothing funny about it. It's just when I see it in my mind, right? I laugh because it's insanity, right? It's insanity. Like, I don't know what else to do but laugh about it. But it was not funny when I was that little girl and I witnessed it, right? There was a time, right? Mom had company in her house and they were in the room with the door closed, right? You know what they were doing in there, right? Someone OD'd in my mother's room, right? Do you know what she did? She dragged him out the house and left him in the hallway. She didn't call 911. She didn't call an ambulance. She didn't call the police. She left him in the hallway. Do you know how disturbing that was as a little girl to see some stuff like that? That was very disturbing. And I think in my little girl self, right? I even said to my mother, like, you're not going to call no one? She said no. Went back in her room and closed the door. And I learned later, right? The reason why she didn't call to report it, right? Because they were in there using drugs. There was drugs in there. So if she would have called the police, right? You guys know what would have happened? They would have took everybody up out of there. Kids and all. She might have went to jail. So you would let somebody, right? Just lay there and die to protect what you were doing? And the grown-ups back then, right? You guys thought this was normal? It's deep, guys. Cause, effect, relationships. Those babies are watching. They got to grow up with this information and these visions. When I tell you, right, that mom put fear in her children of her. Now, I know most normal people, right, whose parents probably grew up, going to church and took the kids to church and, don't know about mental health issues or experimenting with street drugs, right? Like you guys, right? You know nothing about this, right? The people in my neighborhood, right? They all thought this behavior was normal, guys. They were in cahoots with each other, right? Because they were all up in that room using, right? And none of them wanted to go to jail. And none of them wanted to stop getting high. You see what I tell you, right? Like with people who drink too much, right? For people who drink too much, right? If you're hanging around a bunch of people, right? And you guys all think alike. You're all drinking. It's all fun and games. You're partying, right? And you're drinking all the time, right? And now all of you become alcoholics, right? And they think that's normal. They don't know it's not normal. And if you as an outsider, right, try to go in and tell them that, they don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear that. You're disrupting what they got going on, right? Because they think it's a good thing. They think they got some good stuff going on, right? Like I told you, right? I have a friend. He has high blood pressure. He does not take his high blood pressure meds because he's always drinking. And this is why I have to give people the information, right? I had to tell him, in case you don't know, right? High blood pressure can cause stroke and heart attack, right? You should not be skipping your meds. Your life is more important than that drink. Some people will even go as far as to say, right, that they ain't afraid to die. They're not afraid to die. I mean, hell, when it comes to my time to go, like naturally, right, I'm going to be scared. Because I don't care what I know about religion or heaven, or like I said, there is so much confusion around that whole stuff, right? So even though I know I have a higher power, right, a loving and caring being, right, and I'm gonna go meet my maker, right, we don't know for sure. I've seen people die, right? You ever see some people, right, like I said, I had a boyfriend, right, who died of cancer. He was 47 years old when he died of cancer. It ran in his family, right? And in those last days, right, there was fear in his eyes. There was fear because people don't really know. So when I have somebody that's young, right, and they be like, oh, they ain't afraid to die, right? Are you sure about that? I know people, elderly people, right, that lived a long life, right, and they're tired, right, their bodies are weary, right, and they know, like, they have an idea where they think they're going in the afterlife, right, but in them last few days, I see fear in their eyes. They're scared because we don't really know. So when I have young people tell me they're not afraid to die, right? I don't think that sounds normal. Now, we know that we're all going to die, right? We know that one day we're all going to die, right? And for a lot of us, right, we live up until we're like 90s to 100, right? Our bodies is tired. It's been a long journey. We're tired. We're ready to go, right? There is fear. It's that silent stuff that people don't talk about. I know when my time comes, right? I'm powerless to that. It's not like I'm gonna have a choice, right? When we're dying, we're not gonna just be able to say, hey, I don't want to die and get back up, right? We all know it's gonna happen, right? I'm gonna be scared. And even with religion, right? When they tell you about God and heaven and all this stuff, right? But then they tell you about this place called hell, right? And we don't really know which way it's gonna go. There's even fear of the unknown. I'm gonna tell you, right? Healthy, well-balanced people, right? We have emotions. Normal emotions, right? People who don't have normal, healthy emotions, right? They say the strangest things. They say some stuff that you be looking at them like, what the hell? Yeah. Well, guys, we're going to stop it there. Usually I go into an hour and a half, right? I'm cutting it down. And even now that I'm stopping at 115, I still feel like there's still so much more, but we're going to stop there. Like I said, it's Thursday. I was tired. I was just, I love doing what I do, right? Don't get me wrong, and it's important to me, but I was tired today. But I was like, you know what? You're going to go on and do the show anyway. Showing up, right? Oh, guys, I got so much stuff to tell you guys. So much other stuff. Like these people, right? That they don't believe in going to see therapists and counselors and you mentioned mental health and their first thought is I'm not crazy, right? And they can't seem to keep a job, right? They can't seem to hold on to a job, right? When I tell you some things is evident, right? It's evident to the normal eye, right? But for some people, right, they're not looking through a normal eye. And sure, we all have our struggles, but most people, like I said, even with a mental health condition, right? I've been working since I was 11, right? And yeah, I lost a job here or there, right? But I didn't stay stuck. I got another one, right? You keep moving. Some people, right? They don't move. They don't move. They figure, oh, well, lost my job. I can stay home, relax, smoke some weed, collect unemployment, right? To most well-rounded, mentally healthy people, right? That stuff is not normal. If you are physically able, right, to get out there and make a living for yourself, right? But you rather just stay home and do what with your life? What are you doing? I'm talking about the cause and the effects. We got so much more to cover. I'm telling you, when God put something in my spirit, right? Like I said, I have not only been dealing with a mental health condition most of my life, probably from like my early childhood days, right? But I also had to watch other people in my community. You guys, it's different. It's different, right? And remember how I told you guys, right? Even when I was a little girl, right? Before I knew about higher power or God or spirit, you know what I mean? There was always something in my head, right? When I was a little girl, right? And I was in my mother's house and surrounded by some things, right? And I was scared. I was scared. I was a little girl, right? And I shouldn't have even known fear, right? But God put that there as a warning to tell me, right? That something ain't right. There's a such thing called healthy fear. It was healthy for me to be getting the fear emotion. It was them warning bells telling me this shit ain't right. When I tell you guys, right, that God put this thing in me, not just like the mental health issues, right? The years, right? That even through suffering through a mental health condition, right? I don't even know. Like I continued to further my education. Like I kept going. I didn't let that mental health stuff stop me. Even in my times of critical moments, I'd get up and I'd go. You guys, those gifts, right? Yes, there's some bad traumatic stuff down in there, right? but you got some gifts along the way. The gift, discernment. You guys, if this is resonating with any of you guys, it's starting to get dark, so my video might start getting dark because I don't have lights on that I need to have to keep the video bright. But anyway, we're going to shut it down. Again, if you come across my YouTube page and any of this resonates with you, if you feel as though this could be helpful to you, helpful to some friends, helpful to some family members that are open-minded to it, maybe they've been dealing with a mental health condition for some time now, please share the information. Hit the subscribe button. Let's keep this going, right? We want our people, the ones that are coming up behind us, right? We want them to do better than the last generation. We got to educate them. We got to walk with them. We got to guide them, right? Have a good evening, guys.